concerned about it. The market's making some gains, though.
That's right. Still plenty of nervousness around, but markets, at least in Asia, mostly making some gains, taking their lead from the close on Wall Street. Just the Shanghai Composite slipping back there almost 0.5% in trading. Meanwhile, we're, of course, keeping an eye on the oil price. That's also easing back a little bit. Now, on Wednesday, the price of Brent crude shot up to a 6-month high of $117 a barrel. It's now trading at just under $116. Syria's oil supplies are actually quite small, of course, but it's just further disruption that's worrying investors, and possible action in Syria is pushing some investors to seek shelter in dollar assets, and that's hurting currencies in emerging markets like India, Brazil and Indonesia. Now, they're already suffering as many investors anticipate moves by the US Federal Reserve to ease back on its stimulus policies. The Indian rupee, one big faller, but it's not the only one, as Julia Seeger now reports.
The rupee continues its fall. Since January, it's lost 20% of its value, becoming one of the world's worst performing currencies. Some of the reasons: India's widening trade deficit, as well as the overall slowdown of its growth rate, which has hurt market confidence. Foreign investors are blaming the government's lack of concrete action.
Government should have its priority in strengthening the rupee rather than doing anything else. Because in case the dollar keeps on increasing the way it is, and in case it increases beyond 67 or 68 marks, which it could very well do right now, seeing the circumstances, I think inflation would go to limits which are unmanageable.
India is not the only emerging country whose currency has fallen in recent months. Since the beginning of the year, the Turkish lira has lost 15% of its value. In Brazil, the real has dropped by 20% in only 6 months, which has fueled inflation, prompting the fourth rise in the interest rate since April, taking it to 9%. These currencies have all been hit by outflows of foreign funds after the U.S. Federal Reserve announced it would wind down its vast stimulus program, a decision that has seen investors in the U.S. and elsewhere pull money out of emerging countries across the world.
OK, well, let's get some of the day's other company news, shall we, Stuart? And Australian airline Qantas has returned to profitability. The company reported a full-year profit of $4.5 million. Now, that's a big turnaround from the $220 million loss a year earlier. Cost-cutting and an alliance with Dubai-based Emirates has helped that turnaround.
US Bank Merrill Lynch has settled an 8-year racial discrimination case. Now, the firm was accused of preventing black employees from getting the best opportunities. Compensation of $160 million will be split between over 1,000 employees. That's if a Chicago judge approves that deal.
And Amazon is taking a battle over taxes to the US Supreme Court. It's fighting moves to force online retailers to charge their customers sales tax. Traditional stores say that the current rules mean that those online companies get an unfair advantage. That's because they don't have to impose the sales tax charge in states like New York, where they don't have a physical presence.
Now then, sponsoring big events like the Olympics, for example, usually, you would have thought anyway, a good way for companies to promote their brands. But it's not without risk, is it?
No, and Coca-Cola is discovering that. A group of protesters were out in Times Square in New York on Wednesday. This is what they were doing, pouring Coca-Cola down the drains there. Now, they're protesting about Coke's sponsorship of the 2014 Winter Olympics in Russia, and they're accusing the company of effectively supporting hate, as you can see from those placards, by staying silent about laws in Russia that are seen as anti-gay. Let's listen to one of those protesters.
We're in Times Square because of the outrageous anti-gay policies and scapegoating of LGBT people in Russia. The upcoming Winter Olympics, one of the prime sponsors is Coca-Cola. We're here today to send a loud message. Drop those games and stop supporting hate.
So, Coke, how are they responding to that protest?
Yeah, well, they have responded. They put a statement up on their website, and put a bit of it on here just to say their comments were that as one of the world's most inclusive brands, they say we value and celebrate diversity, and we've long been a strong supporter of the LGBT community and advocated for inclusion and diversity. They say they don't condone human rights abuses, intolerance or discrimination anywhere. And they also added that they believe that a more positive, impact can be made through continued involvement, they said, rather than by sitting on the sidelines. So, well, clearly they're not going to end their sponsorship, which has been, by the way, in place since 1928.
Oh, right.
Long-running
quite a long
sponsor.
time.
I think the longest, in fact.
I suppose they can use that as a defence as well.
As
All right.
well, they are, yes.
Excellent. Matthew, thanks very much, Matthew, with Business on France 24. Now it's time for today's Focus, though.